Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found a skull. I think you guys are going to want to come film this.
Put him out.
I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said there's a monster on the wall.
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence. They were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, bizarre-ites, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one dude Blood Chugger calls Shane Squatch.
Shout out to Blood Chugger. And I'm the big bad Boo Daddy Orin Humphrey Felix.
Humphrey Felix. Humphrey, yes. Because you're humping free, or is it Humphrey? What's the background of this?
That was my mother's maiden name.
Well, damn, you made me take it in an awful direction. God damn it.
It's okay, she's dead.
That makes it even worse. Let me just put my foot in my mouth or shoot myself in the foot. Whatever one. I'll just do both. I'll shoot myself in the foot and then I'll put it in my fucking mouth. You know.
Ayo. At least buy me a couple drinks first.
Hey, man, you can make some good money off that shit on the internet. I hear that there's websites specifically meant for guys' feet. So, you know.
Well, on that note, if you want to see our feet, our next YouTube live Bizarre Encounters
That's
show,
the only fan, not that.
Oh, my mistake. Anyway, it will be on April the 3rd. That's a Thursday. It'll be at 7:15 Eastern time on the Open Minds Media YouTube. And if any of you listeners out there want to submit questions or articles or videos or anything like that, or to get up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
Number one, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com. Number two, you guys can get a hold of us through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the ones that we're the most active on. Number three is you guys can get a hold of us through the submission form, which is available on the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And the last way, and maybe the easiest way for some people, you guys can either call or text the hotline. If you guys call, I typically don't end up answering it, so you end up leaving a voicemail, and then we'll get into a conversation from there. But that number is 313-364-1551. And if anybody is interested, you guys can also utilize that line for shout outs, birthday wishes, all that kind of stuff. And if you guys start sending that in, we can start playing it in the beginning of the show, because it's always cool to hear your name on a podcast. And on another note, if you guys enjoyed the show and you think we deserve it, please leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify, because your continued support is what makes this show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help this show grow and improve. So thank you guys.
And as always, all the shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description.
Please welcome to the show, for his first appearance on this show, and hopefully going to be many more, just like on Inquiries of Our Reality, the one that they call the Raptilian, the one that they call Tomcat. Please welcome to the show, Tomcat Thompson from Strange Brew.
What's going on, man? Tomcat. It's Tom.
I always write that on any of the covers you're on because it looks fucking great to write Tomcat Thompson.
I have too many aliases. Billy, my co-host, can vouch for this. That he's like, shorten it down to one name. You need just one name. I'm like, no, I got three technically. Yes, I'm Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson, the Raptilian. It's just literally how I say it all the time. And I am from Strange Brew Podcast. It's we've been doing this for a long time. Started off slow, you could say, not slow, but very drunk. Very drunk. There's probably I don't kid about this, that we're gonna do essentially like a 300th celebration episode, but I'm like, it's really like 400. Like, if we're lying, there's been so many episodes that have been taken off the show just because we started off where we would just pretty much get hammered and talk about conspiracy theories and everything and anything strange. And I'm surprised that we had listeners back then, but we did, and we kind of have now built up a show with some pretty loyal fans. And I also do hip hop music where I spit the truth and I bring up very controversial things using hip hop music. I've been doing music longer than I've ever podcasted. So, I've been putting out music since I was like 15, probably 16. So a long time.
So you're a man of many hats and a man of many nicknames, it sounds like.
Yes.
Many talents.
Yeah, we need to up our nickname game over here, Shane.
Yeah, we got Shayn Squatch and
numbers.
Big Bad Boo Daddy. I mean, we got a lot of inside jokes, though. At least we got that going.
Well, I'm not going to divulge anything yet, but we might be adding to the Big Bad Boo Daddy nickname here before too long. So that's a spoiler or a teaser for you guys out there.
Dude, I just want to bring this comment up because I got to give you shit for it every single time that we talk on a show and you bring up how hammered you used to get on Strange Brew.
Yeah.
Best footage I've ever seen in my entire fucking life was when you thought the camera was off and you fell into the microphone and thought the microphone was somebody trying to fight you. So you squared up with the microphone. Squared up with the microphone, and then didn't you fall back over again after that?
No, so like it's so funny because I'm like going through older episodes and stuff like that to like, and I was talking to Juan about it in like an earlier episode where I'm like, oh, you missed the St. Patty's Day special, and I can catch it on Patreon, but no, it's been scrubbed from the internet. Essentially, I drank a 26er of whiskey to myself within like in 2 hours, an hour and a half, and it hit me. And I was making whiskey sours for the St. Patty's Day episode, and we were talking about probably some monsters and leprechauns and all sorts of shit like that. And then I pretty much didn't realize how drunk I was. It hit me, and then I started playing this leprechaun clip from the movie of the leprechaun rapping over and over and over again. Didn't realize what I was doing. And then essentially I thought that I X'd out everything in the stream. And I got up and I'm like trying to like stand up and after I'm like drunk to get up to actually out of the chair. And then I fell backwards and there was like St. Patty's stuff on the wall, like necklaces, and then that all fell over. And as I'm like getting up, I'm like, I hit the soundboard in this place where I'm like trying to get up. And then I'll always remember this because I was just telling the story on my show to Marie, and I was like, you know what, like you're like so drunk that you can't even like stand properly. So I was like, I slid down the stairs to downstairs because I'm upstairs, and then my wife is like, it's 9 o'clock. And I'm like, oh man. And I can remember being so drunk. I was in bed and I kept getting up and be like, why am I in bed? It's like 9:30 and I'm like just out of my mind wasted. It's funny because mostly everyone has done it. That's like kind of an initiation. Like we got to get Shane to at some point. Aaron did it on a Halloween episode. He was like blackout drunk. And he drank a whole bottle of wine and then pretty much was just chugging Jack Daniels. Terrible choice. And I could see him like when we're playing videos in the little camera underneath in StreamYard. And he's just like just keeps telling me to drink. And so I was faking drinking. I had cans that were empty and I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing what I did last time. And he's like, I'm fake drinking. He's like, keep drinking. And it was really bad. Like only half of it is on Patreon. And then Billy's done it once before we ever recorded it. It was New Year's Eve. I have a video of him somewhere. And Billy's the person I started the show with. We were like friends as cooks. And he used to joke that I would like talk to him about the reptilians and aliens, infiltrating our society and stuff. And then it's just so funny because there's one New Year's and he's so wasted that I'm like, we had all these like sound effect horns and all that stuff to noisemakers. And he's laying on the couch and he's out. And I'm like, blow on this. And he's like, it's one of the hats. He's like, what is in my mouth? And it was like, we've all done it on the show at some point. So it's kind of became a ritual, which I don't think I'll ever do what I did again. That was such a fun choice.
See, it's entry into the show. You got to do it at least once.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Which is because we have a kind of guest host, sometimes Marie, and she might have to have the initiative. It'd be fun to get a chick drunk on the show, and then who knows? But it's been a wild ride. We kind of learned our lesson with a lot of that stuff, right? Like if you're drunk, you're not really coherent, and then you're just babbling on about whatever. And there's definitely stuff at the beginning where I'm like, I don't even understand how fans were listening. And there was a lot of people like, I was listening back then, and I'm like, that's crazy. Because one of the co-hosts that we used to have on the show was like, oh, I liked you guys, you know, and because you guys were legitimately drunk, I thought it was funny. I'm like, why do we do this?
Came a long fucking way, even with the name. Like, the name's still sitting there. Strange Brew. Like, it still has it sitting there. But, like, yeah, just like I've been listening to you guys for a hot minute, too. I mean, that's kind of how we became friends and stuff. And yeah, it's been like a long road of, like, you starting off with just being this, like, crazy, belligerent, drunk guy on air, which was fucking hilarious. And now it's like you've gotten so heavy into, like, the conspiracy stuff that your show is just a lot more serious. It still has the jokes and everything in there. Don't get me wrong. It's still raunchy, but it's like you're more focused now.
Yeah, the Weimar Republic, stuff like that is very controversial. But me and Billy, when he's in the room with me, we have so much fun, even about these more like kind of serious topics. But like me and Aaron recently did the clergy plan. I'm not going to explain what it is. It's a very controversial topic, but like that was more serious, right? Like it's not an audio yet, but like talking about some of these more serious things that I think that I just want to address and use the platform to do so. But mostly the whole idea of the show was to like joke and inform people about strange conspiracies, try to wake them up a bit to what's going on in the world, but also do it with a laugh, to be able to give them dark humor and be able to make these dark jokes. And you know, Shayn, talking about like true crime, but like making jokes about some of the like,
dude, nobody
really
else could have covered the toy box killer. Like,
just wait, man. Just wait till you hear the Myra Hindley episode that we did. My wife looked in the room at me and Aaron doing this, reading off a transcript, and she was like, because maybe we're a little insensitive, and it was not like people might get mad, but whatever. It is what it is.
You guys reading the transcripts on that toy box one, like, and you guys started the episode with that, so it just came in with the transcripts, and it was just like, whoa.
And Aaron reading through that dog stuff was the shit, because I didn't get stuff on it. I knew about it, and we were going to mention it, but he got like a bunch of stuff about what he was doing with dogs and the transcript from that, and I was like, this is fucked up, man. But some chick out there might be into dog men, and who knows?
That's bestiality still.
Yeah, I know. She's leading a trail of peanut butter back to her like tent in the woods. So bad.
Hold on tight, guys. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but
to stay up to date on the show, check out Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin and Open Minds Media on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Discord, and the TikToks.
Now feel free to fast forward through these commercials so we can get back into the show. And now back to the show.
I knew that we were eventually going to start getting unhinged in this episode, because Orin and I usually have this point where we start degrading to a point where we just start getting raunchier and raunchier with the jokes. But just knowing you coming into this one, like, I knew that it was going to start getting to that point real quick. And we already got a Dogman peanut butter joke. So that's like, that's 9 minutes in. That's a new record.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, it seems like on this show, once we get off the tracks, I mean, it's just fucking bedlam at that point. I mean, it doesn't take us very much to just get completely off the rails. So, I mean, we're kind of used to that around here. Sometimes, like when we're doing deep dives, I try to reel it back in, and like sometimes I've got no good segue for things, and I'll just be okay and jumping back in.
I know it sometimes gets tough, right? Like we covered recently cattle mutilation and crop circles, right? Like a lot of the stuff that we do live, and then it comes out in audio a little later. But like at the end, we talked about the serious issues that are going on in the world right now. You know, with every country kind of being overrun by like third world immigrants, and that stuff just comes up because my buddy is from Ireland and I'm from Canada. And we're kind of both going through this thing where people that are here shouldn't be here, and using our money to benefit them and not us, and our government's behind it and actively doing it, in my opinion, to bring an end to this civilization maybe. And like that stuff just comes up because it's a serious problem, right? Well, even when we're trying to like hold that stuff back, it's still me and Shayn did it. It breaks the barriers of like social issues and things that are happening in the world, right?
I mean, it's about having the right group of people to do it with too, because it's like you can't have those conversations with everybody, and they're clearly not for everybody. So, you know, it's like you don't want to start dividing people. So it's like you want to make people aware of topics without making it seem like you're too hard onto one side where you're going to start like straight up just like dividing people. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's like
we try to alienate our audience, but talking about some of the
alienate them. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Here's
an idea.
But that's part of it though, right? Because like I'm like some of the stuff that we've covered, I don't know, we may have lost fans doing it. In talking about maybe the protocols or the Great Replacement, some of these very more controversial topics might have lost us fans, but it also gained us people also at the end of the day. And we try to come at it this way always, and Shayn, you would know this about how I've done the show is like try to be like, hey, like this is just like speculation theory, take nothing seriously. We're just showing you things that could or could not be true. And then people kind of have to decipher it for themselves. Like I'm sure me and Billy have talked about Hitler a little too often, and maybe like that stuff was like people were like, what the fuck are they talking about, man? And I have an episode that is going to be some of the most controversial shit we'll ever talk about, where everyone talks about the bad things he does. We're going to talk about the good things he did.
No, so we did Operation High Jump 2-3 weeks ago at this point. Yeah. And so we were talking about the whole like occult Nazi angle, and I was listening back to the episode and I was like, yeah, man, I love all this Nazi occult shit. I'm just so into it. It's so interesting. Like, man, if anybody just like got that soundbite, like confirmed Orin Felix loves Nazis. But
I was like, Hitler loved animals, right? Billy was like,
he used to paint German shepherds. Like, what the hell? They did a whole Always Sunny episode about this mystery painting that they were trying to prove that it was painted by Hitler.
That's so funny. I have to rewatch that episode. Yeah, talking about that stuff is pretty controversial. Like I had Ryan Gable on. We talked about that kind of stuff, and he has like a pretty opinion most people probably wouldn't like about that subject. But there's a lot of weird things out there, and it's about questioning it, right? And if they've lied to us about the fact that maybe there is aliens and strange creatures out there to begin with, why wouldn't they lie about history? Why wouldn't they lie about the things that we're being told about the wars? Like that would be the biggest thing, at least physically, that we can tell that they've lied about is something to do with history. And if you dig deep enough and you find evidence of certain things that they said they didn't say about certain events or something like that, not even pointing, people are like, he's talking about the Holocaust. I'm not talking about the Holocaust strictly. I'm talking about just history in general. It's just something, if you don't question it, then you're just going along with the narrative. If you think that, like I always said this, if people think they're awake but they're not questioning the mainstream version of history, you think they're lying to us about all this other stuff about poisoning us with the chemicals in the sky and in our food and everything else that's been happening to people over the last maybe 100 years, if not more, of being subjugated by their own government and stuff like that. Like imagine if they're lying about all that other stuff and you believe that, how would you not believe that they're at least skewing the versions of history that we're told about almost every event?
Well, I think skewing is probably, best case scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, the saying, the winners of the wars write the history books or whatever, that's like probably more true than most people realize. And I mean, that gets back to like phantom time hypothesis and stuff like that, which I don't think we've really ever talked about, but,
yeah, that's weird. Is that where like there's time loops, like people walk into?
No. Well, we've kind of talked about that, but no, like basically like the idea that like the Middle Ages didn't actually happen, and like basically like in history you've got this war and then you've got this civilization and this war and this civilization, and they're basically saying like these are just different accounts, like all of the same thing, and we're really like 500-600 years
we've been flooded
earlier than 2025.
If you ever want to cover that on the show, I actually have somebody that I've had on inquiries. He did a 4-part series on this. His name is Ari Asulin, and he does Paradigma Threat, the website, and he's basically just spent a few years now just collecting all this information of alternative history, going back like as far as he possibly can.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'll send that one to you because I knew I was going to send you a list and stuff. But yeah, if you ever want to get into that more heavy on the show, Warren, I could have Ari on. Like, I don't think anybody can cover it better than he can, dude.
Well, Paul Stobbs, the Nephilim clown guy, like he's like really into the whole like little season thing, which is like the idea that like the rapture already happened and like we're like living basically in the apocalypse now, like, and that kind of gets back to like this whole phantom missing time thing too. So like there's a lot of cool angles you could go with that whole subject.
God knows, man, if we're in some sort of like simulation and we're like here to, which I've always thought to learn lessons for sure, but I've talked about this many times on the show. The scariest idea would be that we're in some sort of prison planet. That's what me and Shayn did talk about on the simulation theory. Imagine if we're like in some sort of prison where they're just using our energy constantly, and there's the idea, if we're going to get into this at some point, the reptilians, right? My favorite subject.
I was going to say, this is probably a good segue in, actually.
Yeah, they put a web over the earth, supposedly. This is there's so many different theories about the reptilians, but they put a web over the earth, and essentially that it is, or whatever this is, a dome to some people. And then when we die, we just shoot in this web. Our soul gets caught into it, essentially like an ethereal web, and then we get shot back down to earth. And then we pretty much are just reliving these lives over and over again for their consumption. And maybe this idea of past life regression and stuff like that is that we're living different lives, but we never get to escape the quote unquote matrix. And that's when you're born, you're being born, like, or when you die, you're seeing the like light. A lot of people go towards and get beckoned towards it. And then they're coming out of a birth canal and they're coming back into this physical form, which we're constantly enslaved by, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said on the show, like, simulation theory is probably like the one thing that would like surprise me at this point if it was true. Like, I've got a pretty high, like, but you can come at me with some weird shit, and I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe so. But I think that's like the one thing that I would like actually be surprised about. And Shayn, we've talked about this on the show a little bit, but what I think so interesting about simulation theory is, people on one far end of the spectrum, like the Elon Musks and the Neil deGrasse Tysons of the world, are like, yeah, we're probably living in a simulation, like these very atheistic, new agey type people. And then really, like, when you get down to it, simulation theory and religion, Christianity are not that different. You're just calling it different things. And that, like, I always think is so interesting about that topic.
It's a better way to describe things. It's just, it updates with the language, like we've talked about a million times on the show. And at least for me, man, like, no matter what my research goes back to with all this weird phenomenon, everything, like, I always come back to simulation theory. And it's just the matter of, like, how that simulation functions. Is it like a computer program? Is it more of an organic simulation, which I kind of gear a little bit more towards? But
yeah, me too,
I always come back around to it.
Mushrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
But like seeing some shit, man.
Orin on the opposite side of the spectrum. It's funny that, like, I'm completely in the one camp and you're completely on the other side. And even on the other side, our old co-host / Jenny, that's like the one topic, like, she can't talk about that. Otherwise, she just like can't do it. Like, she goes into like panic mode.
Yeah,
so
it's like
just
existential crisis.
All three different sides of the spectrum on that one, man.
Well, it's like when people actually take the time to stare up at the sky and be like, there's no ceiling up there. There's just whatever it is, whether we be in some sort of dome and it's just bubbles.
Until a light falls.
Yeah, until a light bulb like bursts out or whatever. Or
what the heck is this?
I've always believed it was like aliens or some shit, or there's planets out there. I've seen weird stuff since I was a kid, like looking up at stars and using telescopes and binoculars. Me and my buddy would be stoned and be looking at like stars and seeing them like shift colors, blue, red, green, yellow, all the same stars, like these synchronicity, like it's synchronized patterns of colors. And I've always wanted there to be more. And if it's not physically here in like what people think, if we do live in some sort of dome or whatever, if the flat earth idea or the globe idea, if it's more like they're interdimensional, as most people think, is that they don't exist in the ways we think on different planets. They exist in a totally different reality than we could even imagine. And that's why I do think we only see 10% of reality. And then like the stuff I've seen with shadow people and strange UFOs and using Ouija boards since I was a kid, there is something like weird about this reality. And the more mushrooms you do, you start to see patterns and almost like it looks like a code in like tribal patterns. And I've seen I've done mushrooms a lot. And when we used to watch movies outside on the projector, I would look up, I would stare at the
grid.
And it looks like a grid.
Yeah.
It looks like all the stars are like essentially a thin white line is going between all of them. And the fact that you've seen it also proves that there's something to that.
Dude, that was like my biggest fascination when I was going through my Psychonaut days. And it's been like at least like 3 or 4 years since I've done anything. But I've been kind of feeling this call to come back to it. So like I've been waiting for the right time to like line stuff up because I kind of just feel like it's a good refresh. But yeah, man.
I've gotten a break. Like
you do it to like help yourself with certain things. And then after that, it's like your brain tells you you're good. It's like you use it to like reprogram some things. And then I've always said, I've talked to you about it a million times, bro. Like I see it as a tool, not like as a drug or anything anything like that. Like
No.
you use it as you need it, not like I'm gonna go get fucked up on mushrooms every weekend. Like that's not what it's for.
When I was doing it like every weekend or every other weekend, I'd be like outside watching movies by a fire. Like there was thinking about it now, I'm like, I don't even know how I did that. Like I just like the whole like feeling of it, the stomach issue, like all the stuff. And I was doing it every weekend at one point for like probably like it was every other weekend, and it was every weekend for like a month or 2 months. And even my wife's just like, I can't like hang out with you. You're like on a different level. And I'm like tripping balls. And I just tried to like hide it from her. Like, I'm not as high as you think I am. I can still speak and talk, but I'm tripping balls. Like I'll never forget when we watched The Village, and I haven't seen it since I was a kid in theaters, and I was watching it high on mushrooms, and then like it was like a kaleidoscope around the projector outside, and I was like just sitting there like trying to act normal while I'm staring at this crazy kaleidoscope. And I remember at the end I'm like, holy fuck, I remember it's fake. You know, it's like freaking out. And I'm like, I realized what it all was, and I was like, holy shit, man, it's like it's you know, and I didn't even realize the ending until I saw it, and then all this stuff coming back to me. I was like, I remember this movie now. It's so crazy what it does to your brain, though.
Dude, so I guess this is probably a good pivotal point that we can either do one of two things, and we could probably leave it up to Orin on this one because I kind of feel bad that he's kind of hasn't said too much yet. So we can either, one, get into reptilians, or on the other side, you've brought up some of your experiences with the Ouija boards, with the shadow people. I guess we can kind of let Orin pick on this one, and if we don't get to the other one, we could always do it on the next time you come on to the 100%. Show. But for the sake of getting into a topic, what do you think, Orin? You want to cover his personal experiences or the reptilian stuff?
I say let's start with shadow people and see where it goes from there.
Perfect.
All right, y'all, we got to take a break and pay some bills.
But if you guys hate ads, well, you guys can get ad-free and early access on Patreon for just $1 a month. And it's a great way to support the show. And if you'd like to get some extra video content and merch store discounts, there are a few other tiers with additional benefits with 7-day free trials available for most.
And now, back to the show.
And say part of the shadow people goes into your Ouija board stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is like, so I don't know. Like I've told like Shayn about this, talked about this. I think the first time we really ever did a podcast on inquiries, and you know, I used to mess around the Ouija board a lot. At first, I had this schizophrenic friend that essentially he was older than me. We met at one of those youth clubs where we both are broken inside, and he was a little older, and he taught me and my buddies how to make a Ouija board out of like a shot glass and a piece of paper. And it was just like a fun thing. We're like, oh, whoa, we're like contacting the other side. And I'm like,
look, Mom, I'm a Freemason.
Yeah, I'm like 12 or some shit. Like I was pretty young. And because I was when we started using it at lunch, which is so crazy, it was in grade 7. And then so eventually I got a board from my grandmother. That was the first board I got. And then
was it new or was it one that like she already had?
She already had it. It was like, okay. I wish I had it somewhere. all my stuff's packed away because I have a baby on the way. So we have to like pack up shit, get everything ready to go. But
side note, congratulations. Because I don't know if I've actually said that. I think I only sent it as a message before I forget again. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'm excited. It's going to be wild. But like I've had 3. I always wanted to collect more, but then I was like, that's probably a bad idea. I was looking
babies or Ouija boards.
Ouija boards. Yeah, I want to collect. I would like to collect more babies. White people, I think, need it.
You got to watch how you say that because it almost comes out bad. This ain't no Wayfair.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Hey, we hit that on the show too, so you're in good company.
But like I got one from my grandma, and then like I think even my wife's mom gave me one, and then somebody else. I don't even know where the third one came from, to be honest. And she had one, and it was one that they used actually. And I wish I had it because it has like stars on it, and then there's like this woman above it, like with her glowing eyes, and it was like a kind of probably one from the 90s, and they used it. When probably actually earlier than that, maybe 80s, my mom and my grandma, and I don't know if my grandfather was there, they used the Ouija board. My mom had a friend that committed suicide, hung himself in a garage when she was younger. They were very close friends, and she swore she even saw him at one point where she was going to bed, she was thinking about him, and she reached over to turn off her lamp, and she saw him as real as, a real human being. That one's cool. That's one of the new Parker Brothers ones, though.
It's one of the classic ones. It's wood.
I know. All mine are wood too. That's pretty good. But that's what most of the designs look like now. I have 2 that are very simple, like old school, simple. And then the one with the lady is kind of cool, but it looks destroyed now. We did use it a lot. But, and she saw this weird stuff and she started leaning over and saw the ghost of him. And then they used the Ouija board later. And then supposedly when they asked him, like, hey, why'd you do this? When they spoke about his parents, the shot glass flew across the room and broke, supposedly. Really weird. So that's the Ouija board I got. And then me and my friends started using it when we were fairly young. And we would...
Well, not to cut you off, but that's the reason I asked, like, was it a new one or was it used? Because I feel like, that kind of shit, like, stuff lingers with it. I feel like there can be, like, not that you can't access things with any kind of Ouija board, I think. But, yeah, I mean, when you've basically already put that intention into an object, I feel like it's probably just more powerful at that point.
Yeah, with people using it, the more people that put the hands on it definitely seem to, and people can say whatever, it's fake, but I use it enough in my life to know that there's something there and it is a conduit for something. Mm-hmm. And, me and my friends started off, like, we're just having fun joking around. Like, we called Harold Houdini. And he told us a joke. Like, I'll never forget the joke he told me. It was so dumb. There was one about tennis, like 5 plus.
What was the joke?
The one that was really weird that I do still remember, because we're all emo kids, and it was how did the punk cross the road?
I don't know.
Stapled to the chicken. It was so dumb that we're like, why would any of us even think of that? That shit's retarded. Like, it was just so dumb. And it was shocking though, but he told us another joke and we don't even know if it was Harold Houdini, right? You never know when you're contacting these things, whatever it is. And me and my friends weren't like, I don't know how we would have made up some of these long sentences off the top of, and who would be really controlling it? How would it have done what it did? And then at one point, I had an aunt that lived in Jamaica, and she said she got obsessed with it. Like, she's from Jamaica, moved here, married my uncle, whatever. She said she was like obsessed with the Ouija board and wouldn't eat or sleep. And I don't know if she's just watching the Exorcist movie too much. So she warned me about it, and then like using it by herself. So I used to go home. I was like 15, 16, whatever, and I would use it by myself too when I was like drunk and stuff. Such a bad idea. God knows what I was calling upon during those times. And me and my friends saw weird things. One of my buddies was native, and he had his arm scratched because he had the darkest skin. We're like, "Can you scratch our native friend?" And then he lifted up his sweater, and there was like just nail marks like down his. And we watched it. Nothing touched him. We all were like around him. His sweater was down, and it was a little weird. It was trippy, but it's something that stuck with me.
Let's say, and then you had some other weird interactions with that before we get into the shadow people stuff too. That seem like it's more on the like succubus side of things.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know. It was so weird. It's the Ouija board told me that like there was this girl. So originally we called on Emily. What was her name? Emily Rose, right? So we thought that like the Exorcist girl was real. But it wasn't her name. Like, that's not originally her name. I think it was based on that Clara I can't remember, Germania, something like that. But there's one specific case that they based off. They just changed the name. So then, interestingly enough, it was supposedly this woman that died. I think she said drowning in a car accident or something like that from a city. Weirdly enough, that I hate now. There's a city in Brantford. In Canada called Brampton, and people call it Bramladesh now for a reason. But she was supposedly from there, and then she got like it felt like I was obsessive, which is such a weird thing. Like, it drew me in, and I wanted to talk to her. And I was a young boy and impressionable and all that stuff. So they would tell me that there was 2 female ghosts that were attracted to me in the house, and really weird shit at that age and stuff like that. I was like, this is weird.
Is this when you were doing it by yourself too?
No, this is when it was me and my friends. So I didn't do it. I didn't use it. I started using it in trying to bring things in or whatever the fuck I was trying to do until I was like 16. So I was doing all this, and all my friends would come over at lunch during school to do it. It's just so weird. It shows how like much we were into it and thought it was interesting. And God knows what thing we were giving energy to. And then so there was one time, I swear to God that I went to bed and I had boxers on after we did one of these Ouija board sessions, and my friends were gone. And, I'm just like, I'm like grade 7, you know, I'm young and I'm like, okay, I don't sleep naked. I have parents in the house. And then I woke up, my underwear was across the room. And then the next day my friends were using it. I was like, what was that about? Or whatever. Like what did I, whatever. And then they were like, they essentially said they raped me on the Ouija board.
What
it was
fuck?
like, yeah, pretty much. They just said, yeah, we took advantage of you, and there was 2 of us doing it. And in my head, it's really, the weirdest thing is too, in my head, when I was a kid, I could picture what they looked like in some weird way. I almost like knew whatever they were projecting at me. It could have been some sort of demonic energy, reptilians that were taking advantage of me. I've heard weird things about how they can infiltrate your dreams and project a image of like celebrities or something having sex with you, but they're really raping you in the astral world. Like I've heard crazy stuff like that from like people on Coast to Coast now.
That goes into the incubus and succubus thing too. I mean,
well, that's kind of why I wanted you to tell this story, Tom. So my partner, Jenny, who used to be a co-host of the show, like she has very similar stories. I'm not going to get into it. It's her story to tell. It's not mine, but
we covered that on the show a long time ago. If anybody wants to go and check it out.
She kind of messed around with Ouija boards when she was a kid. And then the apartment that she lived in prior to moving in here, she had a lot of that kind of activity. And I also saw a shadow person in her apartment one night. So that's kind of why I wanted you to tell this story. I thought it might be some good back and forth we could have about this.
Yeah, it is weird because I don't know. It's just such a strange thing, like the idea of a succubus, and that there's definitely, I don't know. It was just really weird if it was just us in our like, you know, being a preteen and going through puberty and all that stuff. It was just subconsciously being projected, or they were utilizing that because supposedly the elites do. They want pubescent energy. Like that's what the idea of sacrificing virgins are. They're not virgins, they're children, right? All these stories that we hear. And it's just interesting because is that energy can you capture it? Energy never dies, right? So like, is this something that we can project out there so that everything you think and feel gets projected outwards, like amplified towards things that are around us all the time and that maybe use it? And that's why when eventually, like I was messing around with this stuff for a long time, was aware of it. That was like my first love, was the paranormal. And then when I went to Cuba, and then this is when the whole shadow people thing happened, where I was like, me and my friends were out drinking, like we were drinking in Cuba. The last night was bad because my friend got his balls grabbed by a Russian. It was very weird. We're all drinking, hanging out.
I like your balls.
Yes, that's a good.
I will grab your balls and make them mine.
Weird, dude.
Your balls belong to Russia. Mother Russia owns your balls.
So rips them off and puts them in a suitcase. We thought they were weird because they were like, oh, you crazy Canadians, and like all week. And then it was just that we were all hanging out. I remember like I was rapping for all these Spanish people, like people from Argentina and stuff, and Brazilian people, whatever they are. And they're, you know, Nazi sympathizers down in Argentina, which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing.
We just talked about that.
Talked about that one with Operation High Jump.
Yeah. And you know, it's just like, it was just a weird time. And then we're all like, I was wasted. And then someone's like, turn around, your buddy's down. And then Mike's like, they grabbed my balls. And I was like, what? The Russians. And he's like in so much pain. All this chaos breaks out. It's just like chaotic. Like I threw a drink at some guy that was trying to help me. Like it was like, it was not good. But like, I think that was the start of it, because I was in this negative headspace and I was so drunk that I was like, and my dad's my dad. He's very lenient and doesn't want to be like strict. My mom was the more strict one. And I was there with him and his family or whatever, that side of my family. And it's just like, he's like, go back to bed. And I'm on the balcony, like fucking cussing people out and shit, because I'm pissed about what happened to my buddy and then all that alcohol after a whole week of drinking. And then essentially my buddy goes around and like, this is what I think brings up the negative energy, that I think my energy was being lowered. And I was listening to stuff with, David Icke at that time. I was 19. And it was kind of already in my head that there was like, I always believed that there was things and ghosts and the paranormal, but, you know, getting into the idea of the alien aspect of it in different dimensions and the occult rituals that some of these parasites that people call elites are doing, it intrigued me, right? So all that stuff was in my head already. And then my buddy goes around and takes shots before we go on the plane. Such a wild experience and memory. And then he's like wasted on the bus. And he's like just drunk out of his mind. Like, yeah, they're not going to let him on the plane. And it was my cousin's cousin. So it was a good friend that I grew up with and all that stuff. Right. And he's falling over and he's like hitting into the bus. And then that's when he's like, we're in the airport. And like, you're getting in a line and you're watching like your friend go through this stuff is the craziest thing to watch him be so drunk. They're giving him needles to get him to throw up all the booze. And then he sat in the middle of a Cuban airport and then put his foot up and then just started eating like his own toenails.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it was fucked up. I've never seen anything. And that's why I think alcohol is spirits, right? That spirits and things can take hold of you. And how God knows within Cuba with that blood-soaked land over communism and stuff like that, and how and what we were invoking on that resort. Like, I'm sure there's weird stuff. They practice a lot of weird voodoo ritual type things in Cuba and stuff too. So it just felt weird and eerie. Like it wasn't him. Something was taking hold of him. He was in nothing but pajama pants. No shirt, no shoes, no socks. Just pajama pants, eating his own toenails in the middle of a fucking Cuban airport. And then when we were leaving, I'm all worried about him because I've been this drunk. I've drank a lot in my life and used it to like kind of hush my head, like Jim Morrison did, is trying to like hush all these thoughts that he was having. And watching him go through that was just a wild experience. I'm like, holy fuck, man. And then as we're leaving, he's yelling, fuck Castro, fuck Cuba. And he spit in the Canadian ambassador's face.
Oh my God.
He was just telling me this story recently. I haven't seen him like pretty much since that shit. And like he was at a family event. I was like, man, I haven't seen you forever, dude. And I was like, it's just so crazy that happened to you. I was like, you're the reason I had a shadow people experience. And he was like, yeah, I woke up and I was talking to a lady and she's like, do you remember what you did last night? And he was like, no. He's like, you spit in my face. And I was like, I didn't hear any of this stuff till recently. And I was like, man, he was like, it was fucking bad. I woke up, didn't even know why I was in a hotel. And we thought he was going to go to jail. So as I'm going over this plane,
especially if you sit in your own ambassador's face, like, holy crap, so dude.
Crazy. I thought he was going to be in a Cuban jail. Like, that's what I thought. So then I'm already at this low energy. Like, I've been drinking all week and your vibration does get lower. And, I go home and like, I will never think that it was anything other than what I actually saw. That it wasn't just because I drank all week. That's stupid. I've drank alcohol many times. I've only had one other shadow people experience. And it was just like, I felt like there was someone sitting on my back and I couldn't get up when I was sleeping one time, which was freaky. But then I get home and my wife to be, we've been together for a long time. She was there. And then I just broke down crying. I was like, Mike's in Cuba, man. Like, what the fuck? He's like, I'm like, I don't know what to do. And as I'm going through the border too, I didn't write any of my stuff because I was in such distress over him that I've never actually left the country at that point. And then so I'm like, I'm getting pulled into like, the thing, and they're checking all my stuff and like, you bringing cocaine with you? I was like, no, my friend got left in Cuba. I'm kind of upset about it. And then so eventually I get home, she's there. And then I remember just like, everything just felt like it was going slower. Everything just felt slow all of a sudden. It was so weird. Walking through hallways. It was like, while I was like sober, hanging out with her, we like stayed up. She talked to me for a bit and I was like, okay, I guess I can finally go to bed. But as I'm going to bed, like the hallway looks like it's like moving slowly. It was very weird. And then when I went into the room, I'm trying to sleep. I'm closing my eyes and I'm thinking, I'm here and Mike is like here, like in a different place, right? And then as I'm opening my eyes, I see like all these shadow people like staring down at me, and I was like, this is so weird. Like, what the fuck is this shit? And I could hear the sound of like rushing jets. Like, that's what they say when you have an astral projection. Once you pop into that like reality, it supposedly sounds like a jet engine. And I've heard that from numerous people, especially when I was like researching astral projection and trying to do it and slow my heart rate down. And it's like, it sounded weird. I felt like I was like on the beach in Cuba. Like, it was just this rushing sound of like wind all around me while these like shadow creatures were looking down at me. And then like, I'm just laying there and I'm trying to like sleep.
I'm sorry. Can I pop in real quick?
Go ahead.
So were you like laying in bed when this happened?
Yeah. And my wife was beside me. And she didn't know what the hell I was seeing or going through. I was just trying to sleep at this point because I was like upset. And then I calmed down. I was like, okay, let's go to bed. I'm like, just weird. So I'm like trying to sleep there. And then every time, and like the window's right above our head. And so there's light coming in, but I can see like these things like looking down at me, and it almost felt like they were trying to like suck my soul out of my body. Like it felt like they were like latching onto something deep inside of me and trying to pull it out. And if I would allow them to do it, then I don't know what would have happened, because I kept getting sleep paralysis. Never had it before in my life. Only had it one other time when I was like laying on my back, and it just felt like someone was on my back and I couldn't really move. My eyes would move. And it was one of the most frightening experiences I've ever had in my life of not being able to be in control. And I was just laying there. I could move my eyes, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And obviously like there's like shadow people above me, and I'm just like, like in my head freaking out, but like just move my eyes are just darting around. And then I had to literally do like this. To like, and I do that exactly. I just rip myself out of it. And I don't know how much of a memory she has of it, but like it's stuck in my head forever. And I'm like trying to get like out of this state of mind or whatever, and out of sleep paralysis. And then it kept happening over and over. And then the worst part was when I stood up to finally go to the washer. I was like, I gotta brush this off. I saw like whatever 7-8 foot tall shadow creature thing look down on me. And I could see it look down at me. It reminded me of like an Insidious when like the shadow points to the boy. Like it looked like that, but like bald with like almost, it looked like what a reptilian's outer appearance, like a physically strong looking humanoid type shadow person with a bald head. And I went to the mirror and I was like, what the fuck is going on with you? And I'm like, you know what these are? They're trying to fuck with you. Or like I was trying to think like, okay, if this is real and this is all happening, I can feel it, see it, that I need to try to control myself. And I literally didn't sleep till the sun came up, and then I finally was able to sleep. And I've never had an experience like that since, ever. And it scared the living shit out of me.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be back with that bizarre stuff you crave. But
if you would like to rock some gear for your favorite podcast or creature, hop on over to the OMM merch store for a wide range of designs with new drops regularly.
And we're back with the high strangeness. Let's get back into it.
Yeah, so the shadow person I saw, very similar experience. That's why I popped in to ask, like, were you like physically laying in bed when this happened? So I was spending the night at Jenny's old apartment. And how the apartment was situated, like from where we had the bed, you could see like into the corner of the kitchen from the bed. And, we're sleeping, everything's fine. And I just like, for some reason, set like bolt upright in the middle of the night. Like wasn't having a nightmare, just nothing, just for some reason set straight upright. And in the corner, like the top corner of the kitchen, like you said, this 7-8 foot huge, what everybody says, blacker than black, like just outline of a person.
Wesley Snipes, but in the dark, right?
And see, I couldn't even make out any kind of detail like that, but it was just like the shadow outline. And like you said, that's the scariest I've ever been my entire life. Like nothing happened. This thing was just there, but I was like fucking terrified. And, I guess like after a while it kind of dissipated or whatever. And, we tried to go back to sleep, whatever. And we're just like getting, settled down and trying to fall back asleep. And then for some reason, her cell phone on the bedside table just lights up, like no call, no text, nothing, just the phone lights up. And at that point I was just done. I jumped out of bed at that point, just started like basically doing laps around the apartment.
Mom's house. If I could have like just went and sat in the couch, like I probably would. It was just weird. Like I wanted to, like Chelsea was like sleeping beside me. Like I didn't know what the hell. I didn't want to leave her away. It was something that will always stick with me. And then the people that like deny that there's things out there, whatever, or that is possible. I'm always like, I had my own experience. I don't have to hear it from you and your, bullshit theories or rhetoric or whatever it is. Right. I've had my own experiences that has proven to me that this reality is more than meets the eye, Transformers. And then like, and then, you know what I mean? And then at the end of the day too, like, that's why I tend to believe people. Like if people sound sane and they have family, they're credible in a lot of ways, like they're not just some weird shill or something like that.
Well, that's what we say on the show all the time. Like, yeah, there's hoaxsters out there and that sort of thing. But I feel like, nobody's getting rich off this shit. Like, I feel like that's relatively few and far between. And I think 90% of people who claim to have seen or experienced something, they at least believe what they're saying. Like, did that thing happen, 100% verbatim what they're saying? Maybe not. But the overwhelming majority of the time, I think the experiencer truly believes what they're saying.
Yeah, and so do I. And the fact that like they either believe it's real or it like is real, because like there is I don't know, there's a lot of people that have shared their experiences, and the people that have made some fame off of it, a lot of times it plagues their life.
Yeah,
we're gonna cover the this metal man, and the cop that has seen him. Essentially, he said, like, it ruined my life, man. Everyone made fun of me, like, in the town. Like, they didn't believe me. I was ridiculed. He had to, like, move in the middle of nowhere. And it's, like, that's sad that does that to people. And it's happened to many people. Like, even, like, you think about the Flatwood Monster and some of those type of creatures. Or
Loveland Frogs, that was another one with the police officer just got, like, laughed off, essentially.
Yeah. Hopkinsville Alien Encounter, like that one, like that there was like a bunch of people shooting at something, and they're all like, oh, of course the name's like Billy Ray and stuff, which kind of adds to the.
And then they come up with the little green men idea, and that just kind of stemmed from there too, because that was never even an expression until after that, and they weren't even described as green; they were silver.
They were like goblin weird creatures, right? And so like it is weird, and then most times they're ridiculed. Like, of course, this hillbillies drinking moonshine and then shooting at some silver alien goblins from Harry Potter,
I mean, even on the shadow people thing, it seems like it's almost like the new ghost experience for like the new generation, because it seems like 80s, 70s, nobody want to talk about having paranormal experiences, but if you get somebody in a room and you're just talking one-on-one, almost everybody has some weird event that they've talked about, and usually was like ghost stuff. Nowadays it's like nobody wants to believe in shadow people. It sounds like this ridiculous thing, but when you actually get everybody talking, like everybody who's in the community has at least one experience with shadow people, and even just normal people like they aren't into the paranormal. It's like when you get them to describe a weird experience they have, it seems to always go back to this whole like shadow people phenomenon. And either one, we're talking about all the time that the phenomenon is constantly changing and it's part of this shifting phenomenon, or two, getting into the other kind of like more obscure side of it. We've talked about on the show with the whole idea with like shadow people that they may come in as black because they might be in a different color or a different spectrum that your brain can't comprehend. So rather than
that we can't see, so
it just fills it in with black, and it's just things that you can't comprehend. So there could be like a wide diversity of things within these shadow people that we're talking about, because you got the Hat Man, you got this, you got that. These could be a bunch of different creatures.
Talk about that, right? And then Aaron Rodgers, him doing ayahuasca and then thinking that something was following him, like, is pretty. And the fact that he would even say that, and people are like, this guy's fucking crazy. But I'm like, he summoned something when he did the ayahuasca trip. That something came out of it, to. Like, who knows? You don't know what these celebrities are doing, if they were in some sort of ritual or they're in a room when it happened, and then they do ayahuasca, and then something is like, oh, I've been here the whole time. I've been watching you,
Well, I think that's a really good point, Shane, that you kind of brought up about the whole shadow man versus ghost type debate, because, I'm on record as saying I don't think things are haunted and ghosts exist like in the way that a lot of people think they do. Like, I think when people see a ghost, it's not like a fucking Civil War general that you're seeing his spirit or whatever, and I think that kind of goes back to the Ouija board conversation we were having earlier. And Tom, you kind of said the same thing. Like, yeah, you've opened this line of communication, but you really have no idea what the fuck you're talking to. And so I think, a lot of times, people are seeing something when they see ghosts, but I don't think it's like I said, the spirit of, your Aunt Sally or, a Civil War general that died on the battlefield. I think it's these other things presenting themselves in some sort of mask.
That's true, because we had they'd be like, oh, you're talking to your buddy's grandfather or something. And I don't necessarily believe that was going on. And I find that it could be this idea of residual energy too. There's intelligent hauntings that are like creatures and things that exist outside of our reality, and they're be
free thinking.
Masquerading as like kids and stuff like that. People are like, oh, there's a kid ghost that's pushing a ball around or whatever, They just like typical Ghost Adventures episode, and
it's a demon.
It's a demon. It's possessing me. Oh my God.
I got scratched. Did you see this?
Fucking Zach Bagans drives me crazy. But I've watched it a bunch recently because it is entertaining, and the whole time I always make fun of him because I'm like, it would be more credible if you'd stop being like, I can feel something and it's making me angry. He acts. You can tell it's not necessarily genuine. But like, and then you have like, so maybe Gettysburg and people seeing these soldiers or bombs or hearing bombs and go off is residual energy from how much trauma has been going on there, of like this stuff is stuck around, where even if you do see maybe a soldier, it's just, it's stuck in that reality, but we get a glimpse into a different time because our reality isn't as real as we think it is. And there is intelligent, and then there's the residual, which always fascinated me, of like imprints in time and very important locations. And then people are seeing all sorts of shit.
I mean, even going off of that aspect too, I mean, I definitely agree with you guys on most of basically what you're saying. But one thing that I've kind of wondered is if, you have this whole idea between like energy not being created or destroyed, so it does create something residual, like totally behind that theory. But on the other side of things, the other thing that is this phenomenon that we're all constantly chasing. Like, it's a really, really unpopular opinion, but I've often wondered if it's like us and then like a them, that it's not all these other beings. It's rather that it's this other consciousness that's like this malleable thing. And I know, Orin, I'm going to be guilty of this one, but I'm always bringing up fucking Star Trek. But they talk about this thing in Star Trek that there's a bunch of these different species that have basically expanded past being in a physical form to the point where they become these like energetic bodies where they don't have a physical form of they don't have a physical
like
form
the
anymore.
Matrix kind of thing. If you think about like just the way they portrayed that movie or whatever, it is a weird idea that they're like something that you couldn't even like really understand. There's some sort of robotic spider floating creatures in like some empty space and time. Like realistically, it's a good way of portraying it because it would not be probably something that maybe we could even envision. Like I do think there is probably creatures and stuff like that are more humanoid and is a projections of our own consciousness, and maybe we've created things like tulpas in the universe of like things just exist now, but it would be scary because the things that we think that are like aliens or whatever could be just an intelligence of some sort of source energy, and it looks way different than we think it is.
I mean, even going into like the Archons concept, that could even explain like the past civilizations of like where the hell did all these people go? Maybe it wasn't a matter of they went anywhere, but they just evolved past having a physical form and they didn't go anywhere, but they're non-physical now, so they can manipulate their physical form. So it's like the phenomenon is us and then the others, and these others could even explain a bunch of the past history stuff that, you talk about all these subtle little conspiracies within Star Trek too. And I know I want to do an episode on it at some point because it starts getting into like the solar ward and stuff and like all of these weird concepts, and like there's just so much weird heavy concepts in that it almost kind of seems like the Simpsons things, that it's predictive programming half the time rather than like, oh, here's just this crazy sci-fi adventure. Like it preps people's minds for these ideas. And I mean, like I said, there's this whole thing with like Gene Roddenberry and like where he was getting this information from and diving into a bunch of like, secret programs and all that kind of shit. But, maybe there's some validity to it, man, that like, everybody wants to categorize all these things as something different, but like the reptilians, like all of them, they're all the same thing. They're just these energetic vampires that have evolved past a physical form to the point where they eat and drink off of other energy. So they just are taking advantage of what's in front of them, like they never left. They're just here.
Well, in last week's episode, when we were talking to Nomar, I think I mentioned that I was like reading John Keel, The Eighth Tower right now. And like, this is basically what you just said is basically the thrust of that book is there's this force from the super spectrum, as he refers to it, that is the source of all of this stuff we're talking about. He says, UFOs, aliens, cryptids, ghosts, like all this stuff is basically the same thing, and it comes from these energy beings, whatever that means, from the super spectrum. So I mean, basically what you're saying is straight out of Keel.
It's weird how everybody seems to come around to like these same concepts, and it just kind of like comes in like pockets and waves. Like I think there's a lot more to this phenomenon than we have figured out. It's just that we don't get any backing or validity to it. So it's like we just keep running around in circles, even though we may have already figured out the answers at some point. Because like I said, it keeps going in spirals, but it's like, how can you ever fully prove a theory if it's something that's almost like unintangible to be able to like prove? It's like you could have projected the right theory a million times. You could have had it completely figured out, but you'll never have any solid backing to be like, yep,
like
this
when,
is it.
Jesse Ventura was like, when he did his like he's doing a show about reptilians or whatever, and he busted on David Icke doing a live show. When he sold out like Wembley Arena, something crazy, and they had like cameras backstage. He's like, "Show me a reptilian." And he's like, I can't, man. I can't just like make it appear. He's like, it's something beyond your comprehension. Show me. I want to see a reptilian like right now. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? I can't just like make one appear, you retard. And like, so like, it's this interesting thing of like, you can't, it's not provable because we can't even understand it to begin with. All the energies and things that surround us, they can't even necessarily prove that space is real, right? So like at least to our eyes and what they're doing, right? A lot of the things I've heard, like I don't necessarily subscribe to flat earth. Like that's I think it's interesting. We made fun of it on the show a long time ago. And I'm like, I'm on the fence a little bit. Like if we live in some sort of maybe, thing that's being controlled, like think about like someone touching uranium and they have their like arms and the thing to control it or whatever. It's an interesting thought, but like I don't think we even understand that. And like NASA's been caught with putting stuff into the black budget. Like I do think that a lot of the money that they get, we got to fix this rocket. It's like $2 bajillion. We need this money from you, and then
give us your $2,000, even though it's going to broke you. But we're going to put millions of dollars in this project.
Yeah. Or like God knows with the child trafficking stuff, they're like, they're putting it into that type of thing. They hide things or have underground tunnels. Like, I don't know. To me, I do think it's a lot deeper than most people understand. And I'm sure that they have underground tunnels and stuff that is like moving people around and things.
All right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bizarre.
Kind of jumping back to the whole like NASA flat Earth thing for a minute, kind of like you said, I don't necessarily subscribe to flat Earth. I think it's fun to think about. I think it's fun to, research and like look into what people are saying. And what I'm about to say is going to probably be like the most conspiracy tinfoil hat sounding thing I've ever said on this show. And I have nothing to base this off of, but kind of like you said, Tom, like, I just feel like there's something about like space that is not like on the up and up. There's like something about space that we don't know.
Well, the astronauts, they've been stuck in space.
All their hair's straight up.
Well,
it doesn't fucking move.
And rescue them. All that shit's bullshit. And then the fact that you have like the people that died during what space station, like that thing that blew up, the
Challenger.
Yep. Yeah. Jinx. And then there's like footage of them like in other things. Like people are like tracing pictures. And it looks very similar to this guy and this girl or whatever, and the they've shown that they do underwater training. And then there's been so many things that they've caught, like astronauts, like their seatbelts are like unbuckled and stuff. Like there's just weird things, or like the water that they're supposed to be is flowing this way. They're just only upside down. They've slowed it down or whatever. There's a lot of trickery. And there's green screens and stuff like that people have literally caught it in the background while they're saying, "Oh, I'm floating in a space station."
When they did the tour of the space station, you could see the fucking green screen that was up on like the big monitors and stuff that they were doing something. But dude, you know how you got to get to the bottom of all of this shit? We need to create a team, kind of like the Doge team, but it's intended for digging into black budget programs and all this conspiratorial shit. And it needs to consist of Alex Jones and Eddie Ventura. And they basically just need to stand outside of NASA. You got one of them that's just like, come here, you goddamn fucker. And the other one's like, come here, where are the aliens? Like, I think we get some honest answers with the combination of those two. That would be a great department.
I want to see Alex Jones.
That would be a great TV show.
Jesse Ventura, fist fight, but they have to like scream at each other for an hour first.
I just want to see those two as like a live action show of them just harassing people. They just got to stand outside of government buildings, NASA, like literally anything. And the entire show is just them harassing anybody that walks out of the door trying to get answers. Like, I think we would honestly get somewhere with it.
I wonder if I still have that. I might have deleted Alex Jones. I had him on my soundboard for so long that I was like, no, he kind of needs to go.
Dude, that's a shout out to Trump though. You got to get to the bottom of NASA, bro. Just send in Eddie Ventura and Alex Jones and just let them just hang out in NASA for a while and see where we get with that shit.
I think they've replaced Alex Jones with a clone now though, man. There's that one video
because he's buff like, now. He's not like
76. He got buff after he was like a month or two, and all of a sudden he looks like he's done tons of roids.
I like to eat.
No, he took if he is still the same Alex Jones, he took a bunch of Ozempic and then he took steroids. That's the only way that he went. Like I saw him like a month or two ago, and then recently I played a clip of him on the show where he's like crossing his eyes, 1776, and like freaking out. I'm like, man, this guy's lost.
Did you see the one where he was freaking out on his show recently, and he's like, "You don't get this way with Ozempic. You get this way with hard work and girth."
Oh my god, guy's lost his mind, man. More than ever, you know.
It makes the best clips on the entire fucking planet, though.
He'll never answer the real questions, though, because he's definitely a shill.
That's what he needs Eddie Ventura for. Eddie Ventura will get him to the real answers, too.
Eddie Ventura, he's worse now, man. He's been worse, like, in the ways that he's, like, he's gone. He's not believing anymore. He was backing, like, Kamala Harris and shit like that.
What the fuck?
Yeah, he lost his mind also. You know, Alex Jones will never call out who it really is, you know. We all know. Just think about the people with the tiny little hats. Why does he never go after them, even though there's a lot of proof? It's because that's who owns him. That's who probably, you know, tried to shut down his studio and shit. So
yeah, there was a lot of weirdness with that shit.
Questions from Stu Peters, so I'm convinced that he's part of it. It's too bad. He was entertaining while it lasted.
Hey, he's still entertaining it, like I said, at least for clips. Even if you don't listen to the show, dude, you just got to listen to like Alex Jones clips of the week, and it'll make your morning.
David Icke woke me up in Coast to Coast and like Art Bell and stuff like that. But when I was a chef, man, I was like, you know, whatever, 18, I'd go for cigarettes, and you used to be able to get at the Alex Jones Show as an app on your phone, and then I would just like press play. And then it was like when they first developed like smartphones, the first kind of thing you could get like apps for. And I remember like I would just like play it and then go inside, work for a bit, go out for another smoke, play it. I just keep like, I listen to them like all day. And I've always had it stuck in my head. Even when one chef let me play the show on like in the back of the kitchen, there's one like a liberal chick or some shit. She's like, he shouldn't, like, why is he listening to that? I don't want to hear that shit. Like, and my chef was like, you're supposed to be out front serving the customers. Why the fuck are you back here? He was like, you can listen to what he wants, man. So I was like, that's cool. Thanks, man.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, I'll keep listening to Alex Jones scream. And I like, you know, there's other people that are kind of worse than him when it comes to how far he pushes the envelope, right? It's an entertainment purpose. He's definitely doing an act, right? You can tell when someone's being genuine, and there's like maybe 40% of the time he's actually being genuine.
Dude, all the alt media is all corrupt at this point. But like I said, bro, Alex Jones is still fun regardless. I ended up doing an Alex Jones impression on just about every show, I think. Right, Orin?
You hadn't busted it out in a while, so it was time for old AJ to make another appearance here on the show.
Well, there you go. You got to
always stuck to his guns, though. David Icke has always been one that has called it out since the beginning, stuck to his guns, and never seems to falter on like him being like, fuck you, you guys are all part of it, and I'm not going to stand by and watch this shit. So like,
that's why he's banned from half the world at this point. Like,
yeah, I know. And that's why when I had Jerry McKenzie on, he was like, you know, I would love to talk to David Icke, right? He's like a dream guest of mine. I've shouted him out to try to get him on the show. And hopefully one day it will happen. But like, you know, Jeremy was like, you know, I just want to ask him one thing. What is it like to be so smart around all these stupid people that don't know what's going on? And you're just trying to explain to them, hey, this is what's happening. What the fuck are you doing? And then like, you know, essentially, how does it feel to be like kind of been calling this out for so long and have everyone still like, you don't get it yet? Like, you know, especially like people like that toe a political line. I see these people and they get all these followers on TikTok, so like that. We're talking either they're on the conservative side mostly. That's what I see or whatever. And I'm like, it's the same people, man. Like I don't understand what people don't get yet about this. They're all controlled by the same people. Doesn't matter what your little check mark does on a piece of paper.
Hey, left wing, right wing, it's all part of the same bird. I say that shit all the time. Yeah. So
all flying in the same direction towards a communist authoritarian hellhole that experience. It seems to be UK is experiencing it. So. Maybe it'll come here.
See, I think last thing to wrap up on before we start closing up the show. I think the thing with David Icke that he kind of made it so that a lot of people like. First of all, I mean, you're coming out with the reptilian claims, which for anybody that's not into this kind of stuff, like that's already like a ridiculously out there claim.
He had to kind of bring it back a bit.
But
like
the first time he came out after not being a soccer player anymore, he went on a talk show and was saying that he was Jesus. Like, I think that anytime anybody looks anything up, they jump back to that. So like that one thing fucked up most people taking him seriously.
I know. he was in some sort of like 80s like jumper, like windsuit, you know, and it was like very colorful. But if you actually listen to what he says that we're all like Jesus. That essentially that we're all part of that consciousness or whatever. That's how, if you actually listen to what he was saying on there, it is. And then they always take him. He was on BBC explaining this stuff, so he's been on some big networks. But he does try to take it back a bit. Like he was on Stu Peters' show recently, which I was actually shocked about, and Jake Shields' show, which I was like, cool that he's actually getting more exposure from these people. That like Joe Rogan should have him on as a guest, but for some reason he's never done it, and it just makes me think like Joe Rogan's had all sorts of controversial people and interesting, weird people. Why not have one of the most interesting, controversial people to exist? You know, but he won't do it. It seems like I'll be surprised if he ever does it.
Cross your fingers one day. That'd be a great conversation.
That'd
but I will
wild.
say,
3
I haven't
hours.
listened to Bill Murray or listened to Joe Rogan in a long time, and I listened to the Bill
Don't
Murray
say
episode.
Bill Murray,
So
I'll slap you.
Fucking Bill Murray, bro. How dare you? Bill Murray is a national treasure.
Bill Murray. Okay, Bill Murray's fine. I thought you were talking about for some reason. What's his name? He's not Bill Murray.
Dude, I was sold after the first 5 minutes. They're already talking about Hunter S. Thompson. I was like, yup. Bill Murray, Hunter S. Thompson, national fucking treasures.
So I've actually got a Bill Murray story before we start wrapping up. So last year, or maybe it's been 2 years ago now. It's when me and Jenny took the
Bill Maher. Sorry, that's. I was like,
that's the real sports guy. Yeah. No, we're talking about
I was like fucking hate
Zombieland and Ghostbusters. But
America's grandpa.
Anyway,
I know
Shane,
who Bill Murray is. For some reason, I thought you said Bill Maher, which made me angry.
a couple of years ago when me and Jenny took that cruise, it sailed out of Charleston, South Carolina. And apparently, like at some point in time, Bill Murray like filmed some movie in Charleston and fell in love with it and like has a house down there. He owns the minor league baseball team down there. So anyway, night before we get on the cruise ship, we're just, beating around downtown Charleston, and we go in this bar and it's like Chicago sports themed, like the Cubs and the Bears and shit. And, Bill Murray's from Chicago. So we're just sitting there at the bar, and these like 3 or 4 kids, well, I say kids, like young 20s come in, and they ask the bartender, they're like, hey, can we sit here at the end of the bar? And he goes, yeah, you can for now, but that's Bill Murray's seat. And if he comes in, I'm going to make y'all leave. And I was like, hey, if Bill Murray comes in, that's fine. I'll get up and he can have my seat. But anyway, that's my Bill Murray story that Bill Murray's not actually in.
Oh, that's cool though. Bill Murray's good shit. I was a big fan of like all that older comedy, Animal House, stuff like that. R.I.P. to like John Belushi and shit.
You just got
lost him young, man.
You just got away with him, man. Like I said, Hunter S. Thompson shit and all the connections.
You said
to
Bill Maher, and I'm like, Bill Maher is a fucking human piece of shit. So
yeah, no, not Bill Maher. Bill Murray, totally different spectrum here.
All right, we need Bill Murray to fight Bill Maher now.
That would be an interesting fight
with Alex Jones as special guest referee.
No, he's the commentator. Beat his ass, fucker! Come on, you goddamn fucker! Get over here, you piece of shit!
Yeah, he would hate Bill Maher because I'm sure they have beef, but who knows?
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last ad break. But if you've got some free time, don't forget to check out the awesome friends of the show, I Know Squatch, Snarly Yow Natural Products, Crypto Teology, and Big Ape Threads.
And our other friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices, Oregon-ite, and Sticker Mule, with additional discounts and credits available down in the show notes. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
Well, I guess with that, man, for anybody that may want to come and check out Strange Brew, if they haven't already, they want to come and check out your music, you can tell them where to get that at. Or if anybody wants to hit you up for any reason whatsoever, man, why don't you let everybody know where they can come and find you? And hopefully on the next episode, we can get into reptilians.
Yes, for sure. We can definitely do that. Yes, I go by the Raptilian. You can find my music on all music platforms. Think about Reptilian, just put an A instead of an E. And even on YouTube, if you're looking up on YouTube, it'll say, do you mean the Reptilian? You say, no, I mean the Raptilian. It's annoying because it just always comes up with that shit. And yeah, I'm on Spotify where I'm reaching more and more people with my music, so it's pretty cool. I'm working on a new album right now. I just released one called The Great Resistance, which was very like conspiracy, pushing against the agenda and our tax money being used for absurd stuff like that, and pushing against a lot of the woke agenda. A lot of that stuff is what this last album was on, and now I'm working on something that's going to be Still the same kind of topic and subject matter, but more poppy beats. It's going to be different for everybody that's listened to my music. It's going to be a little different than what I've normally done, switching it up. And then obviously, Strange Brew Podcast is a weird, strange podcast. We have guests time to time that are either controversial or pretty interesting, but it all started off as me and my friends having fun and talking about things that are strange and bizarre. So we cover an array of different topics. It's a lot of fun for people that tune in and watch the lives or listen to it back on audio because, we do have a very dark sense of humor and kind of we pride ourselves, you could say, on being controversial and pushing boundaries and not really caring about censorship and stuff like that, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But you can find us on all music podcast platforms and music platforms. But yeah, www.strangerepodcast.com. And then if you literally like Google like Stranger Podcast link tree, you'll find our link tree and stuff like that too. And it has everything on it, my music, the podcast, where you can find everything. So fuck yeah. If you're strange, check it out.
And I'll make sure I put that down in the show description so everybody can find that link quick and easy, of course. And Tom, man, we appreciate you making the time to come on today. Hopefully this is the start of a lot of future episodes with a lot of fun stuff, because I can definitely tell we're going to get into some shenanigans now that, you guys are finally able to meet. So
yeah, we'll actually we'll have some beers on an episode and we'll just do some fun topic. There's definitely plenty.
We call them allotments over here.
Yes. I know. Yeah, because we got to stick to it because there's a lot of bizarre things that we could cover technically, because even stuff that, maybe I've covered that I'm like, hey, this one's really weird. One of the weirdest ones by far, which I know, Shane, you've covered, is the sand down clown. That thing is,
that was a good episode.
Very creepy, weird. Like, what a weird thing. My name is Sam. I am all colors. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, he was just diverse and progressive. I mean, Sam was ahead of his time.
I am all colors.
With his little music box.
Well, Tom, it was so nice to finally meet you and like put a face to all the stories I've heard. So thank you so much for coming on. And like Shane said, we'll have to definitely have you come back on for something at some point. Maybe we can hit the reptilian side of things next time.
For sure. All right. Should I get out of here? Bye-bye.
All right, guys. And on that note, if any of you listeners out there want to get up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
Number 1, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com. Number 2, social media, Instagram and Facebook are the two that we're the most active on. Number 3, you guys can utilize that submission form, which is available at the top of the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And number 4, which is maybe the easiest for a lot of you guys can either text or call the hotline. That number is 313-364-1551.
And everything we've mentioned throughout the show, sponsor links, the hotline, all that good stuff, it's all in the link tree in the show description. And I didn't say this shit, but it's all down there. Shit.
It's all with that shit. And with that, guys, we've definitely stayed bizarre on this one, getting into some out there weird theories and concepts with the one, the only Tomcat. And like I said, we stay bizarre. We hope that you guys do the same. So at the end of the day, guys, always to remember to stay bizarre. Bizarre.
We need more nicknames.